we have all of these inequalities in
Carl,
this world.
what are you listening to?
Oh, let me put that on pause.
What was that?
I'm actually listening to our original episode where we talked about Lynn Beyak.
Have we not figured out how to spell her name yet? Say her name.
Beotuk?
Beotuk.
No, Beyak?
Yeah, Beach.
Yeah.
It's my favorite episode.
Yeah, that was a pretty good episode.
Yeah. I wore my heart on my sleeve that episode.
Yeah, it just sucks that she's back in the news.
Well, I'm getting naked this episode, just so you know. Listeners beware.
All right, let's do it.
In the heart of the One Dish with One Spoon Treaty Territory, Niagara's Sean Vanderklis and Carl Dockstader dish on any and all issues from a First Nations perspective. From pipeline politics to poverty to pan-Indianism and more, Sean shares his concrete Curve Lake take and Carl gives an urban Oneida angle. You are listening to One Dish, One Mic on the Niagara Podcasters Network.
So Lynn Beyak, what the
What happened? Actually, I haven't been included in the newspaper. I know that she's back in the news and she's throwing the white paper. We talked about the white paper.
We're talking about the white paper.
Still.
1969.
Are we going to do it?
Are we going to
just do the white paper? We should get on board, right?
Well, I mean, apparently our leaders have already assimilated, so we should just follow suit.
Yeah, we're behind the times.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Keep up.
If there's one thing I want to say to community members, it's be more like the elected chiefs. Sorry, elected chiefs. Some of them are really great.
Didn't we just give Eagle staff to Canada at the United Nations?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for all the something.
Yeah,
right?
all the stuff that they don't do. One feather for every promise broken.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's a big Eagle staff then. I had no idea.
So Lynn Beyak, I think it was September 1st, 2017, took it upon herself to write a letter, an open-ended letter to anybody and everybody who would take the time to go to her website. And in this letter, she said that we need to essentially assimilate into mainstream society. We need to sell our treaty rights and become Canadian because we're not Canadian. We also need to follow suit with our elected leaders and officials and just trust that they know what they're doing. She also brought up the white paper, good old Pierre Elliott Trudeau and Mr. Jean Chrétien. And here we are.
Yeah, so I don't even know where to start with how problematic that is.
It's neither do I.
There's people who in their heart of hearts believes that it's a valid argument, right? Like if Indigenous people would just become regular Canadians, then it would be better for them because then Indigenous people could like get jobs and buy houses, and picket fences and live the Canadian dream.
We could contribute. We could contribute to society.
Yeah,
we wouldn't get no more tax breaks, like all those good things, right?
Yeah, it would work out. The Canadians wouldn't have to carry us on their tax rolls anymore.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly.
So, and then we would pay our debt to society, I guess. We would contribute our part. I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that the whole point of residential school was to wash the Indigenous out of the child. I think, unfortunately, I talked about a relative I had in the first episode where we talked about this, and now we're talking about it again. Yeah, for the love of goodness. But I talked about a relative who got into a bathtub full of bleach because she wanted to wash the brown off her skin. Yeah, because that's how society made her feel, and that's how Lynn Beyak's comments make me feel right now. Yeah, like she just wants us to wash the brown off of our skin and to wash away the history and forget about language, forget about culture, forget about the treaties, forget about the promises that Canada made, and just start anew, just buy in. Yeah, start fresh. Yeah, never happened. No, it's some bullshit. Yeah, I know. It's like being a born-again Christian. Everything that happened beforehand no longer exists. You are a new man, and we are new Canadians. That's exactly how I feel. Sorry to born-again Christians. I want to pick on the born-again Christians. Well, that's another episode. That maybe is another episode. Or maybe the social justice. Maybe we can give that one to Patty, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Listeners, stay tuned. Patty is going to come on and do an episode that she doesn't know about yet about born-again Christianity. So, but in this episode, we're talking about born-again Canadianism. Born-again Canadianism. Maybe you have something there, though. Maybe we could just like snap our fingers and we're Canadian, right? Woo. Yeah, I could get a maple leaf tattoo on my chest. Did you see, was it Smoke Signals? Did you ever see that movie? Yeah. But when his dad, he's like, poof, there goes the white people. Poof.
There goes colonialism. It's a good day to be Indian. I'll tell you what, it's not a good day. It's not a good day to be Senator Lynn Beyak because, like, seriously, like,
is she going to get filleted for this though? Like that's what, if you remember the last time it happened,
yeah,
it actually took us about a week to tape the episode,
yeah,
and then it took us another week to get the episode out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, by the time we taped the episode and by the time we got the episode out, still nothing had happened to her.
Yeah.
Like she, at the time, was still a member of the Indigenous caucus of the Senate, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell was asleep at the wheel where they just like let's let this little racist old white lady, wander in here and say whatever she wants based on some idea she has from her 6 friends. Did you see the picture in the CBC of the people she consulted with?
Yeah.
Like, how would you feel if that was like your uncle up there or something?
He's not coming to Christmas.
no, he's off the list.
No treaty payments for him.
Right. Yeah, I can't believe that so little happened. It took so long. I have mad respect though for Ronna Ambrose because this we've talked about this in other shows. Yeah. But specific to Lynn Beyak, Ronna Ambrose came forward and said, "We're the party that apologizes, the Conservative Party that unequivocally apologized, and this doesn't reflect our party values." So you have all 3 parties that believe that say that this Lynn Beyak and Conrad Black sort of nonsense is just that. It's nonsense. It's bullshit. It doesn't reflect our values. But you're still letting the fox hang around the hen house, right?
She's still in the Conservative caucus.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't reflect Conservative values, why is she still a Conservative member?
Senators are unfireable in Canada. We talked about this in the last episode too.
They are.
Canada has...
But you could remove her from caucus. That has happened. Precedence has been set.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau officially unaligned all senators from the Liberal caucus. So while they may still meet as independents, they are not affiliated with the Liberals at all.
She's still got the platform, though. Like, whether she's affiliated with any particular party or not, she's still got this platform for the rest of her life. Like, look at Mike Duffy. He's suing the Senate. Like, that guy on in 20 different ways, and they tried to reprimand him for it, and we seem to live in this world where...
I thought we were talking federal politics, not regional politics.
Yeah, right? Mike Duffy gave his $40,000 expense bill.
I heard Petrowski. Sorry.
Very similar, right?
Yeah.
Where politicians are unfireable, apparently, right? Like, nothing they do can be reprimanded in any sort of way because they're democratically elected, and being democratically elected, I guess, gives you this God-given power where the regional chair doesn't see the need to do anything or can't keep his house in order, maybe, is the issue there. And then similarly with the Senate, who's in charge of the Senate?
Who is in charge of the Senate?
I don't know. Do you know who's in charge of the Senate? We're not trying to tokenize you or anything, but...
Not that you speak on behalf of all senators.
Could you speak on behalf of all of Canada and let us know who's in charge of the Senate, Trevor?
I guess I'm going to try and speak on behalf of all white people.
Okay.
So the Senate, the members of the Senate are appointed usually by the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Right. So, and those are lifetime appointments.
Yeah.
And so it's basically once you're in, you have that nice, sweet, cushy job until death. Until you die.
Death do us part.
So it's the monarchy all over again, except we pick these monarchs.
Yeah.
Kind of. When I think that when the Senate works well, it's supposed to be a place where the government can go, sends its legislation, and it gets like a last sort of review for
House of sober second thought.
Exactly. Yeah. And reviews legislation for sound principles reflecting, in our Constitution, peace, order, and good government, right? So in most cases, it works okay that way. But again, the same sort of issue with regional politics. I was just talking about this yesterday. We're getting stuck on these small issues. And when you get stuck on the small issues, it shows that you probably also can't handle the big issues, right? So
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's what's going on here. The fact that that Senator Beyak has these thoughts, I'm disgusted by them, and I don't want her in the Senate, and I feel like get rid of the Senate in order to get rid of her. That might be an okay solution for this because I feel that strongly about it. So
Works for me.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
So let's just get rid of the Senate. Problem solved. Thank you for listening to One Dish, One Bake.
So another crazy idea. What are your thoughts on appointed doctors?
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
What about appointed doctors?
exactly. And that's my point when it comes to senators and politicians. You shouldn't be appointing them. There has to be some sort of qualifications, some sort of letter or some sort of level of understanding. Competencies like Indigenous people and Indigenous rights should be a prerequisite.
I feel you. I feel you on that. And I mean, I'm actually for a diverse view of opinions, and I'm not totally against appointments.
Why? Dun, dun, dun.
Well, look at the American judicial system, and look at the Canadian judicial system, right? And I'm not saying that American is better than Canadian or Canadian is better than American or anything like that, but I just want to contrast the two systems. Like we're coming up into, I think America is in perpetual election now, so there's always these commercials for judges on all of the American channels, and for me that doesn't seem like good training for a judge. Shouldn't be fundraising and getting elected and making really good commercials. Good training for a judge should be studying law and understanding legal principles and reflecting the values of society and finding ways to do things in a judicial and fair manner. So I'm not totally anti-appointment, but the Senate has made itself irrelevant. It may not have been, but it's now currently an irrelevant appointed body.
It is. It's in my opinion, it needs to be abolished.
Yeah, it really seems like it. So, but there, even if you abolish the Senate, you're still gonna have jerks like Conrad Black, and I recently took some time out of my day against my better judgment to read an article that was promoted by the National Post too. So it's not like I just stumbled upon this article. The National Post took this jerk who founded their newspaper and who has been kicked out of several countries and thrown into jail, and I think he has defied all levels of ethics. And I mean, a way that I look at it is if he were an Indigenous person or if he were a woman, his career would have been completely destroyed. But because he's an old, rich white guy, he not only gets to continue to his corrupt piece of shit ass gets to continue to contribute to his paper, but they actually paid to promote it. Like somebody somewhere on some marketing board decided that it would be a good idea to put some money behind this racist garbage that Conrad Black is putting in the newspaper, where he says things like Europeans in the 16th century were at least 5,000 years ahead of any of the Indigenous people. Like that in and of itself, like 5,000 years,
5,000 years.
Yeah. Like by what standard?
Yeah.
By the fact that again, you had kings and queens with God-given power that ruled over armies that destroyed people because of their faith and belief systems and kept people in indentured service and then eventually outright slavery and captured people and brought them across continent to start the process of genocide and land theft and breaking treaties and making and breaking agreements left, right, and center. Is that the mark of an advanced society?
By his standards.
Apparently, right? So you have, even if you get rid of the Senate, and even if Lynn Beyak fades into irrelevance, which is what it looks like it's going to happen, we'll get to take our pot shots at her, but hopefully she just fades back into the nothingness that she crawled out of. Yeah. But then you still do have the Conrad Blacks of the world. You still have the Donald Trumps of the world. You still have the Andy Petrowskis of the world. So are they tapping this nerve that's out there?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of touched on our previous racism episode when you said, is what's happening in the United States, is that a possibility to happen in Canada? And we taped that episode, a month ago? Yeah. A month and a half ago? Yeah. And I think this, combined with the Conrad Black article and combined with Lynn Beyak's comments, I mean, it's coming over. It's creeping over. I mean, I'm pretty sure in like 2 weeks' time, I'm attending a rally against a racist group in Niagara Falls. Yeah. Right? September 30th. I mean, like, racism is alive, racism is well, and it's flourishing in Canada. It's literally that simple.
And it's because of Lynn Beyak.
It is.
Lynn Beyak and Conrad Black and Andy Petrowski, for that matter. They're the gateway drugs.
Exactly.
To all-out racism.
And because they're doing this ridiculousness and saying this bullshit, acting like privileged little... we're forced to cover it. Yeah. So there's an elders gathering that's happening in Edmonton, Alberta right now. It's first of its kind, where they're bringing elders from across the country in to discuss amazing opportunities. So instead of doing a show or an episode on that and discussing all of the positive things that are happening, we're forced to sit here and talk about Lynn Beyak and her ridiculousness and the racist views that she has and the just hate and garbage that she spews out of her mouth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a couple hours, I'm going to be talking about Andy Petrowski and his ridiculousness. And 2 weeks from now, again, I'll be protesting a racist hate group that's going to be in Niagara Falls.
Yeah, it's a distraction from the real issues. There's a lot of good energy, and there probably are good senators, and I would venture to say that the majority of the senators are well intentioned, and that they do a lot of good work. Yeah. But the reality of the Senate being abolished, it's entered into the public dialogue because of a few bad apples that are ruining it for everyone. Yeah. And I know I personally won't miss it. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, abolished. Yes, reformed most definitely. Something has to happen with the Senate.
Yeah.
It's not 1860s anymore. There's really no need, in my opinion, for appointed senators. I know we have contrasting views on this, but you have to bring something to the table, and it can't be fame. It has to be something more than fame, in my opinion.
I'm okay with getting rid of the Senate. And I'm okay with opposing appointed senators. Like I'm not in favor of having an appointed Senate.
Yeah,
it's just some appointees. That's all. Like I think that highly qualified positions should be filled by the most qualified applicants, not by democracy. Because I think that popular democracy, the form of democracy that Canada has, for example, and the United States has, I think that it's been shown to be ineffective. And again, I would say look no further than regional council.
Yeah,
and look no further than the United States of America. Look no further than every Canadian election for the past however long has had up to 40% of people have voted for any one party that's gotten a majority rule for 4 years. So I just think that popular democracy is deeply flawed. I think participatory democracy, where you have some sort of investment in the democratic process, I think that's the better way to go. So just to be clear, I'm not pro appointed senators by any stretch of the imagination. I'm anti Canadian style of democracy, which again, you can rewind and listen all the way, I think, to episode 2, where you and I sort of lay that out. Well, probably as the election looms in October, in the spring in Ontario, we'll talk about that again, most likely.
Regional council's coming up.
Yeah, regional council is coming up in fall of 2018. So in 2018, look forward to more episodes where Sean and Carl get into a fist fight about democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
And whether Indigenous people should vote or not.
But then we'll celebrate Andy Petrowski's loss.
Yeah, well, maybe, right?
No, he's losing.
Aren't there enough kooks to put him back in office?
I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm going to burn down the place.
Probably the people that voted for him initially weren't all kooks, right? There probably are people who, what was he going to do? He's going to lower hydro bills to regional council or something?
Exactly.
Wasn't that his platform? He's going to lower everyone's water bill.
And the people who voted for him aren't kooks, right?
Well, not all of them.
I mean, come on. That's the equivalent. I have no time for stupid people. I really don't. And I'm sorry for the people who voted for Andy Petrowski, but based on the promises he made alone, you should have been able to determine that this guy has no clue what he's talking about. Same with Donald Trump. How's that wall coming, Donald?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The wall that's never going to get built.
Exactly. It's being built, but what's he say? The hell did he say? It's being built, but it's being built in the form of current renovations of a pre-existing wall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's like, the fence will be up soon, so it went from a wall to a fence.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want about walls, and you can say whatever you want about immigration, and you can make all these boisterous promises about repealing and replacing Obamacare, and you can do all this stuff and not be held to task. But again, heaven forbid you say something against the Langevin block, which is where this all started.
Yeah,
and the hits the fan. People are ready to lay down in traffic to defend Langevin, right? And John A. Macdonald, which is where Conrad Black's article came from, was this whole John A. Macdonald, I guess, controversy. I guess it's controversial to say that, hey, maybe, and it's not like the teachers came out and said John A. Macdonald must be erased from history.
Right.
We can never talk about John A. Macdonald.
And that's the argument they use. The counter, the John A. Macdonald bait is that we're erasing history. We're changing history.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
He was there.
Am I Doc Brown?
No.
Are you Marty?
Nope.
No.
That would be pretty cool, though.
Could it? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
They go back to the Wild West in the third movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the time when John A. Macdonald ruled Canada.
Yeah.
So from the bar stool, I think.
Yeah.
Raging alcoholic that he was. So that I guess that's the thing is Lynn Beyak, her time has passed.
Yeah.
Conrad Black, his time has passed.
Yeah.
Like the time for this type of thinking, that's just not the reality that we live in anymore. Why wouldn't we be reflective in the day and age of free and abundant information? It's more important than ever that we parse that information in an ethical and fair way.
Knowledge is power. It really is.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
Yeah, exactly.
Technology. Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. I'm gonna edit out all the times when you swear so we can keep this episode clean.
Really?
Maybe.
No. But I'm sorry in every other
I'm gonna
word.
edit out this part.
No, you're literally not editing out
I'm gonna edit out this part.
No, you're not.
No. All right. I'm gonna leave it in and see who's actually listening.
So bring it back. Why is what Lynn Beyak wrong? Why is she so offensive? Why, as an Indigenous man, should I not sell my rights?
I've been asked this question before. Why do Indigenous people have to have different rights than Canadians? And
Right.
that's a question I could throw right back at you, but I'm going to take a crack at it. The reason why we have to have rights that are different from other people that share this territory with us is that it's important to have distinctive heritages. Distinctive heritages add richness to our society from a cultural standpoint. And further to that, I think that we have a right to maintain those distinct heritages because we negotiated for that in our treaty rights. Canada tried to manually take away those distinctive cultural things that make us unique as a people. We're connected to who we are as a people from 10,000 years ago. Canada, the United States, all of the colonial settler governments tried to come in and to say that our way was better with no choice from our people.
Yep.
Some of our people, like according to Lynn Beyak, I don't necessarily agree with this, but according to Lynn Beyak, some of our chiefs have agreed to assimilate. We know some people that have just decided that, yeah, I'm going to wash the Indigenous from my skin, but for the benefit of my children and their children and the children after them. I think that not only as Indigenous people do we have a duty to protect and preserve our way of life, but I think that Canadians have an ever-growing responsibility to help us protect and preserve those distinctive ways of living.
Well said.
Thanks, buddy.
Good job.
Thanks,
Was
friend.
that your traveling thought?
I guess that is going to be my traveling thought.
Fantastic.
So, but right back at you, like why have different rights? Like, and actually this would be good for maybe you to clarify because you're pro voting, you're pro participating in Canadian democracy. We haven't decided if you're a Canadian citizen or not.
I think I'm both.
Are you a Canadian citizen? You're like a dual.
I think
you're like a Curve Lake Acadian.
I came into doing this with the understanding that I was pro Canada and pro being Native, and I've often tried to bring them together, but it's impossible. It is completely impossible. So, like, since being on this podcast, I now identify as being dual. I'm Anishinaabe and I'm Canadian, and nation to nation.
Okay,
and that's that. But back to your original question.
Yeah, why have distinctive rights then, especially if you're Canadian? Why do you get a special set? Why don't you have to pay some portion of the provincial tax sometimes?
Yeah.
And it's actually smaller. Like they had Celebration of Nations
and
here, which was great, by the way. I hope everybody had a chance to go and watch the video that's circulating around Facebook right now. It's a great video that sums up a fantastic weekend that's going to be almost as cool as the forthcoming Nurturing Our Roots powwow at Montebello Park on October 1st. But the tickets weren't actually tax exempt. So you have this big Indigenous event, and it's not the fault of the organizers, like Tim Johnson, Michelle Elise, and Sarah Palmieri, and Annie Wilson, and the many other people. Just by mentioning only those people, I'm leaving out many of the great names of people. It's not their fault that these tickets weren't tax exempt, but the tickets weren't tax exempt for Indigenous people for the Celebration of Nations.
Right.
So we're going to have this great event, and the entire city of St. Catharines, I felt like, stopped that weekend and took an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous people, which was fantastic.
St. Catharines showed up.
St. Catharines showed up.
Yep.
Yeah. The Indigenous community showed up. The people showed up. The leaders showed up. It was a truly, truly fantastic weekend. But then this goes back to the very simple premise that Indigenous people who wanted to buy tickets that weekend had to pay taxes, which is just one of our basic treaty rights, that it was agreed that in order for settlers to establish their society here, that the people who lived on this land already would be allowed to live here and not have to pay taxes, not have to contribute to that economy. The Canadian people would go and build their own economy, and Indigenous people could join them and help out and participate. Yeah. But that this one burden of tax is something that wouldn't be applied to them as an offering of thanks to the contributions that they made as pillars of Canadian society. That right, like all rights, has been eroded over the years. And it did go from having a tax-free existence to, well, now there's conditions on the tax. And now if you leave the reservation, there's going to be tax. And now if you leave the reservation and you want to go to a celebration of Indigenous expression and art, you're going to have to pay a little bit of tax, and nickel and dime, nickel and dime, nickel and dime. That's how the rights end up getting eroded.
And that is why, I don't know. I had a thought in my head. It was trying to come out and it didn't. But no, that's exactly why I think that there are two levels of citizenship when it comes to Canada. We have negotiated rights. We have agreed upon negotiated rights. Canadian government approached us. Canadian government asked for these treaties. And it's up to the Canadian government to live up to those treaties that were agreed upon. Have they been doing so? Most definitely not. If anything, if we were to actually take it to a non-biased court and present our case and have them present their case, I think would be hugely in our favor. Canada wouldn't even stand a chance when it came to broken promises. When you put it into modern day context and talk about contracts, this is essentially what it is. Indigenous people from various First Nations entered into contract with the government of Canada. For the most part, the terms were agreed upon from both sides. There's cases where it wasn't agreed on from the First Nations side, but those treaties were still imposed. That's why we have two different levels of citizenship. And that's why they need to be honored. So for Lynn Beyak to sit here and say we need to essentially enfranchise, we need to sell our rights and become Canadian citizens and participate in Canadian democracy, much like our assimilated leaders, is absolutely absurd, and it's a slap in the face. You would not see a corporation try and do this to another corporation at all. Yeah. They'd probably want to renegotiate maybe, but you wouldn't see that. That's just... It's ridiculous. It shows her level of understanding. It shows her level of competence. It shows how unfit she is to be a senator. And because of it, it shows the level of incompetence of the Senate as a whole. Like, my faith and my trust in the Senate, despite having good, well-intentioned senators, I think that's what we called her last time, is completely gone. I feel bad for Senator Murray Sinclair. I'm a huge fan of his, but... Sorry, Murray, but I'm advocating for your position to be gone. I am not in fan of the Senate at all. Something needs to be done. When I posted the article on Facebook to the One Dish One Mic website, I called out Chris Bittle on it, saying, I need you to say something. I need you to get our point across to Justin Trudeau and let him know that this is completely unacceptable. Now, I'm not too sure how hip Chris Bittle is when it comes to responding to messages on Facebook. I've seen him respond to posts on his individual posts, but never elsewhere. So we'll see if he actually says anything.
Do you want to use your traveling thought to formally call him out a little bit, or not? Maybe light a fire.
No, seriously.
All right. What's your traveling thought, Sean?
My traveling thought is that it is unacceptable to hold these views and serve the Canadian people. And as my elected representative, who I voted for, Chris Bittle, I would like you to bring my concerns to our leader, Justin Trudeau. And I would like you to make our concerns unequivocally clear to the House of Commons and to the Senate that these views are unacceptable. It'd be nice to know that a politician has your back. It'd be nice to know that a local politician has your back. We have a relatively high Indigenous community in this population, as seen by the Celebration of Nations, as going to be seen by the October 1st powwow hosted at Montebello Park, hosted by the Niagara Regional Native Center.
With head dancer Sean Vanderklis.
With head dancer Sean Vanderklis. But You are affecting the livelihoods of our children. You are affecting the livelihoods of my children personally. When people have to question their identity and you see leaders of the country talking in this manner, it is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. One of the biggest ovations that people received at the gathering, what was it? Celebration of Nations, was this little girl who said, I want people to know that I'm Indigenous, or something along those lines. I'm summarizing for that. And that was the biggest applause. That should not be the biggest applause. People should be automatically people should be proud of who they are. They should not need a little 9-year-old advocate. While it was cute, that should not be it. We should
Lexi is an all-star. Just throwing that out there.
No, she is. And don't get me wrong. Like, it brought tears to my eyes when I saw it. I'm not discrediting her. I'm just saying, in this day and age, I should not be made ashamed of who I am. My children should not be made ashamed. Any Indigenous person should not have to question their identity. And sorry, I'm shaking the table. And because these comments that she made, people, like you said, are going to be washing their skin of their Indigenous culture, their roots, and the color of their skin. Like, I grew up not understanding my culture because my grandma did not want to identify with being Native. Yeah. So that's why it's so personal to me. It just
You heard it here first. Sean Vanderklis is asking Chris Bittle to publicly condemn Senator Lynn Beyak's comments, and asking Chris Bittle to go to the Prime Minister and to have the Prime Minister publicly condemn the comments of Lynn Beyak.
Boom.
So for I don't even know if I can top the passion.
Sorry.
Of that. No, that's great. But my traveling thought for the day is quite simple. Just let the Lynn Beyaks and the Conrad Blacks and the Andy Petrowskis and the Donald Trumps and all of these other so-called leaders, let them fade into irrelevance, and do what you can to give them gentle nudges off into the night so that we no longer have to hear them. Don't kill them. I'm not saying kill them, but I'm saying just get rid of these politicians. Let's take them out of the public picture. And it's enough is enough. Either Canadians believe that they want to have a fair society where they do fair things and treat people in equitable and fair ways, or they don't. And if that's the case, if they don't want to stand up to these politicians, then it's on Donkey Kong.
That being said, I will see you September 30th at the rally against hate.
Yeah, and then a couple of days after, for October 1st, the powwow in Montebello Park in downtown St. Catharines, featuring head dancer Sean Vanderklis, co-host of One Dish, One Mic at the Niagara Pop-Up Podcast Studio.
I'm so excited for the powwow.
Yeah, me too. This has been our show at generously hosted at Co-work Niagara, the home of Niagara's independent workforce.
Love you guys.
Thanks for listening to One Dish, One Mic on the Niagara Podcasters Network. Your hosts are Carl Dockstader and Sean Vanderklis. Recording is done at the Pop-Up Podcast Studio at Co-work Niagara, home of Niagara's independent workforce. Executive producer is Trevor Twining. Production assistance by Daniel Twining. Show artwork by Mitch Baird. Music by DJ Shub, used with permission. If you have show ideas or comments, you can reach us on Twitter at Niagara Podcasts.